cheese. All right, and welcome back to That's Some Cheese, part of the Vendetta Sports Podcast Network. Today is April 12th, 2021. We're recording this on a Monday, and I wanted to bring on our guys, Cayne Lander and Scott Logush, onto the show because not only has it been a while, but we need a Terrance and Phillip episode on That's Some Cheese. And what better time than to do it with the draft coming up? So, fellas, how are you?
Living life, trying to get through school.
You got a sick mustache going on.
Thank you. Thank you.
First thing I noticed.
I was just explaining to Trey that it makes me more aerodynamic on the field.
Yeah, real quick, producer Alex, how are you? I need to just check in on him.
Yeah, I'm good. School's killing me, but I'm alive. I'm here.
The floppy hair man's here too.
Yes, sir.
So we got Cayne Lander rocking a mustache, and we got Scott. He's got a haircut. Not only that, he looks older. Like since the
I'm
last
not 12 anymore.
Since the last time we recorded, he looks like a good 16 now. I don't know.
I'm not. I can drive now.
I think he's moved up a little bit. Not.
I can drive now.
I'd be okay with that statement. Don't give him too much credit though.
Oh, just he can get his driver's permit.
Yeah, maybe close.
Anyway, we're gonna do a big draft show for you guys today. You have your driver's permit?
Well, okay. So in Canada, it's like you have your G1, that is the permit. Then you have your G2, that's what I have now, and that's basically a full license, but it's not quite a full license. There's some random restrictions, and then your G is like your full license.
That sounds really complicated.
It is, and it's
really
annoying.
It's really unnecessary because the G2 and the G are basically the same thing. There's just like restrictions on like what time of night you can drive and like
how many non-family members can be. It's like it's stupid. There's no point to it.
I failed my driver test a couple times because I can't parallel park. I just really can't.
In Canada, the driver's test, sometimes you don't even have to parallel park.
Yeah.
There's like five different things you can do. And it's like random. So sometimes you don't have to parallel park.
And sometimes like you're parallel parking, you're not even parking between two cars. It's just like there's a random car on the side of the road. It's like, okay, you're gonna parallel park, but there's one car.
I had to park between two cones, and the cones were not that like big.
They were not student friendly.
No.
No.
Can I at least have a little bit of a Terrance Phillip shout out? Just a little bit? Like, can you give me like some kind of South Park reference here?
Well, I did make a joke the other day about how.
So we got Terrance and Phillip on the show, aka Cayne Lander, Scott Logush. We're going to be doing a big draft show for you guys. I want to start with this because there are certain narratives I can't quite understand. And one of them to me is some of these guys can opt out. I didn't need to see Jamar Chase play college football this year. Who cares? The guy scored 20 touchdowns, national champion. He was better than Justin Jefferson on the same team. And then Justin Jefferson wins Rookie of the Year. I don't need to see Jamar Chase. But some of these guys, like Caleb Farley, who do you think you are? Like, does it bother you with any of these guys that opted out this year?
It bothers me that people use it against them. Like, if you opt out, it's fine. Like, I don't have an issue with it. I'm not going to go on that tangent where, does he love football? No, like, that's a stupid tangent
that's not my argument.
To do.
It's a matter of I needed to see Caleb Farley.
Yeah. I think there's, a bunch of different directions you could go for this. See, I don't think in terms of scouting that it's going to have, like, a huge effect. Just because, like, if coaches before were going to look at how you played in, last season and you opted out, what they're going to look for now is like, how did you visibly improve in terms of like maybe things you needed to work on that are evident on the tape? How did you use this year that you weren't playing football to get ready to go into the NFL? So that's something like, for example, I'm sure we'll talk about Rashawn Slater later. If you look at pictures of Rashawn Slater last time he played versus pictures of him in his pro day, he's a different cat physically. Like, the guy was clearly in the gym, like every single day, like working his ass off. And I mean, it's just hard to say with a lot of these guys. I think it could be a really good thing for a lot of guys. Like if you looked a certain way last season and then it looks like you completely transformed your body like Slater, I think that could be a huge positive for you in terms of like scouting, because then people are like, okay, well, he wasn't playing football. He didn't really have, too much to look forward to. So
but that's another guy though, right? Rashawn Slater, he goes out there and he pretty much puts Chase Young in his back pocket. I don't really need to see him. He was awesome when he last played.
Yeah.
Jamie Newman, the Wake Forest quarterback, I needed to see him.
Yeah.
He transfers to Georgia. He's like, I'm opting out.
Yeah.
What?
The other thing I was going to say too is like in the case of like Jamar Chase, for example, like what could that guy have done this year on LSU's offense and then this team to improve his draft stock?
Nothing.
There's nothing. There's nothing he could have done. And I just think that like in the case of Rashawn Slater, I think I don't know what the considerations were. I think for Jamar Chase, it was pretty obviously, okay, well, we had this great team last year and all the boys are leaving. So how can this really benefit me? So that would be my consideration.
I'm actually glad I have both of you guys on because you're both offensive linemen. And with no combine this year, I really rely on the combine to show me, hey, how can an offensive lineman move? How can he bend his knees and stuff like that? Without the combine, it is rough for me to watch offensive line. And I don't feel like watching tape because I got enough things to do. So Cayne Lander, Scott Logush, do you got maybe a sleeper offensive line prospect for me that you like?
I think Scott has one that he was telling me about earlier today.
So the one, I don't know how much of a sleeper it is, but one guy I love is Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. I love his hand usage. I love his footwork, and he finishes extremely well. There are multiple plays in one game against Texas, against Joseph Osai, who's also draft eligible. He buries him, absolutely flattens him, drives him so far. Like he doesn't just pancake him. He drives him 20 yards to his own bench and then just puts him on the ground. He's violent. I love the way he uses his hands, and he's very technical too. It's not this kind of loose cannon violence. It's refined, controlled, and he uses it to his advantage, and I love it.
The only two offensive linemen, I like Slater, but the two offensive linemen that I absolutely love, like to me, Penei Sewell is just head and shoulders better than everybody. Like just that guy, it was just born to play offensive line. He's like,
I 100% disagree.
Really?
I think that
why is that?
I think that Rashawn Slater is better than Penei Sewell.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, once you get to that high level, like those are two like pretty elite, like left tackle prospects. And just based on, how many other positions are going to get drafted, in the top 10, I think in a regular year, they would be, pretty close to, top 10 picks, at least both of them. But the thing is, Penei Sewell allowed, I think he allowed one sack in however many snaps. Rashawn Slater allowed 0 sacks, and he was doing it against better pass rushers. He was blocking guys like Kwity Paye, who's going to be a first-round pick this year. Chase Young, who's going to be an all-pro.
Yeah, he looked really good against Chase Young.
He was blocking all these. The competition, the pass. Like, let's be real. Great pass rushers do not go to the Pac-12. They go to the SEC or they go to the Big Ten. So,
the guy Oregon has is pretty good for next year. Kayvon Thibodeau. He's going to be a monster.
Okay, one.
Yeah.
But, it's just, it seems like the competition level, the guys he would have been blocking in the Big Ten are head and shoulders better than, the guys you would be blocking in the Pac-12. And I think it's really hard to distinguish, obviously, once you get down to guys that have allowed 1, 2, 3 sacks in their entire career. But just based on how the competition stacked up, and specifically that game against Chase Young was really, really, really good. And then he goes and he becomes an absolute monster in the gym this year. Like I said, you don't have to do it right now, but for anybody watching, just make sure you look up a picture of Rashawn Slater last season, the last time he played, versus a picture of him at his pro day, because you will see it as a different cat. And I think that is really important.
The other offensive lineman I really like is the Trey's got to stick up for each other. I really like the Tennessee. I guess he's going to be a guard, Trey Smith. He reminds me a lot of Deion Dawkins when he came out. Played a lot of tackle. Remember Deion Dawkins at Temple? And they kept saying, yeah, he can play tackle, but he's going to be an elite guard. But he goes to Buffalo and he's like, well, shit, he's an elite tackle. We're just going to keep him at tackle. I think Trey Smith, when he walked on campus there in 2017, he was the best player in Tennessee. He's just hurt all the time. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl and he dominates, but his athletic traits are off the charts. He's going to go way too late, and I think he's awesome.
Yeah, that could definitely, that's something, I mean, unfortunately, like I said before, I think there's going to be a lot of guys who are not drafted in accordance with like actually how good they are and how they would be drafted in a regular year this year. Just because, man, the top 5 picks in theory, if teams want to trade up or whatever, could all be quarterbacks. You know what I mean? They could all, and that means that you have a guy like, I don't know, who's the, in my opinion, Kyle Trask, because I think Kyle Trask is better.
You like Kyle Trask.
Yeah, I'm a big Kyle Trask.
You like Kyle Trask a lot. We can segue to that. Why do you like Kyle Trask?
Well, did you watch the tape?
I did.
He's gross. He's unreal. He had like a Joe Burrow moment this year. It's not his fault that that defense at Florida sucked this year. And it's not his fault that, you know, they're not as good of a team as like, for example, LSU was last year. But I think like Kyle Trask had probably the biggest improvement of probably any quarterback other than Joe Burrow I've ever seen from his second last season to his last season. Like he was, okay at Florida, but for a guy to come out, especially a guy who everybody knows the Kyle Trask story, the guy hadn't started, he got pigeonholed behind De'Aaron King, who was also a great quarterback. Decent quarterback, college level, but in high school, great quarterback. And then he hadn't started a game since his freshman year when he got to Florida. And right away, pretty much, he started competing for the job. And then, I mean, when he finally got the job, he balled out. But this year, he just took it to like the next level. And I just think he's so underrated. The way he has unreal arm strength, he has great size. The biggest knock on him is that he's not mobile, which, I mean, it's an overrated trait to be a mobile quarterback, I think. And there's a lot of systems that are moving that way. Just, I mean, Lamar Jackson's mobile, Pat Mahomes is mobile, like all these great quarterbacks are mobile, but I don't think it's, really a knock. I just think it's a different, style of play. There's tons of teams that may do this year with quarterbacks that can't run, namely the Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, I mean, I think if Florida won 2 or 3 more games this year, I think we're having a completely different conversation right now. Even
Are you a Trask guy?
Me? No. No. Because one thing I saw, he threw quite a few hospital balls. And if you don't know what a hospital ball is, it's you're leading your receiver into a massive hit. They're not going to like you very much if you keep doing that.
Man, don't tell me that, because the Georgia DB who was it? Kyle Pitts? It was Kyle Pitts.
I'm not sure. I don't remember who it was.
You're talking. I know the clip you have in your head. You're thinking about the time.
I have a few.
The DB was sitting in the middle and absolutely like cranked Kyle Pitts with the crown of his helmet. I feel like that is nothing to do with Kyle Trask, and probably everything to do with the fact that DB legitimately could have committed manslaughter on that. It was ridiculous. Like, I'm okay with targeting calls. I'm never the guy to be like, oh yeah, that was a great call. Like that was a good call. I usually think like 90% of the time I'd be like, okay, that is a super soft penalty. Like there was one in my head, I'm thinking it was Nate Gary playing against UCLA, and he came up and tackled the guy chest up on a screen, and they called targeting on him because his face mask was in the chest of the receiver. But like this one was probably one of the only calls that I can specifically remember where it was like, okay, yeah, you can't do that. you can't go and run 10 yards over the middle to try to take Kyle Pitts' head off. You can't do it.
I don't love Trask, but I will say I almost think it's gone maybe the other way, where the amount of hate he's gotten maybe is a little too much. I would say with Trask, there are things that worry me. He's not just like a bad athlete. He's a really bad athlete. Like he's like borderline, like worse than statue athlete.
You know what I'm going to say to that? You know what I'm going to say.
But that's not the only thing.
It's a valid argument and point.
Yeah, but you know what I'm going to say to that? You know who else is a really, really bad athlete?
There's another thing though with this.
Player of all time.
and he's a unicorn. If you keep trying to find the next Brady, you're going to be very disappointed and probably get your ass fired.
Yeah, well, it's possible.
Here's the other thing, though. I think Kyle Pitts is the best player, regardless of position in the draft. I think Pitts made Trask look a lot better than what he really is in reality. And I also think, now, I do think his arm is, like, I've heard people say, like, he's got a noodle arm. I don't think that's the case.
No.
But I don't think he's an elite arm talent either. So with Trask, to me, he's maybe a guy you would take in the third round, and maybe he can develop into more, but I can't pull the trigger on him as an elite level franchise quarterback.
Hey, but you're also like Pitt's bias. Like,
well, he's the best player in the draft. I've been saying that for 2 years.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what's also creating that argument that, Pitts made Trask look better. I mean, that may be true, but like that's also just you being Pitt's bias.
I've never seen a tight end that looks like him, ever. He's like if Darren Waller just like started taking steroids in college. 6'6", 260, runs a 4.4, and he's got the biggest wingspan ever. There's like no chance he busts. I think the only comp that I can even think of is like Kellen Winslow, but like Kellen Winslow got hurt and on that motorcycle accident and was never the same.
Okay.
Like, he's even better than Winslow, I think.
So Trey, Kyle Pitts caught, 43 balls for like 700 and for like almost 800 yards, let's say.
And what, 8 games?
And 12 touchdowns. What about the other 31 touchdowns, the other 3,500 yards, and the other 400 completions?
He got better. I'm not denying that. How old is he? I think he's 22, 21.
I don't know.
He's just older now.
With a quarterback that throws 4,200 yards and a tight end, he's great. Don't get me wrong. I think Kyle Pitts is really good. I'm a huge Kyle Pitts guy too. But I'm just saying, I don't know if you can make the argument that Kyle Pitts was a big reason or not a big reason. I guess every good receiver is a big reason for a quarterback.
I think the bowl game against Oklahoma was really bad for Trask.
I think really it was
really bad. He looked clueless.
Team.
Right.
So, but my point is, when you have a quarterback that threw for 4,200 yards and 43 touchdowns, and then you have a tight end that we'd be having a different conversation right now if he caught 1,200 yards. You know what I mean? But he didn't. He didn't
play every game though either. I think Trask looked worse during the games that he did not play. And the other thing I would say is, like, coming into the year, I called him Kyle Trash. He was Kyle Trash to me. He got better.
Yeah.
He looks like he can play a little. I just can't pull the trigger on that guy as like a first round pick.
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think he will get picked in the first round. I just think he's legitimately, like, I would personally take Kyle Trask over. I wouldn't take him over Lawrence, obviously. Zach Wilson, obviously.
I might get offended by something.
Justin Fields.
Let's just see where he goes with this.
I wouldn't take him over Mac Jones even.
Okay.
But I would take him over Trey Lance. And I wrote that in my article. But I mean, first of all, I'll admit I said the same thing when Carson Wentz was coming out. I never am big on those like small school guys. I think the evaluations are easy not easy, but made easier when they're playing in the SEC or the Big Ten or something like that, where it's the highest level of competition. I think it's really hard to project a guy in the NFL, especially if people are talking about using a top 5 pick on the guy. When he played, not only did he play at North Dakota State, which is an FCS school, he hasn't played a full season in 2 years almost.
I have not seen a snap of Trey Lance, so I can't really debate you. I will get there eventually as soon as the schedule calms down. But with Wentz, I remember being at a wrestling tournament. We were locked in a hotel room. Like, oh, North Dakota State's on. There's nothing else on. Let's put it on. I saw that guy for 5 minutes. Like, who is that? Where do I find him?
Yeah.
And then he played at the Senior Bowl too, which really helped. And Wentz was awesome at the Senior Bowl. Lance, I have not seen, and he wasn't at the Senior Bowl. So
right, no, and I mean, he played that one game against what was it, like Central Arkansas?
Yeah, it was on ESPN Plus too, so you couldn't even watch it.
Yeah, so bottom line is he ran the ball all over the place. He was good. I think he had like 120 rushing yards or something like that. But I'm pretty sure I don't know his actual like completion. He threw for like 150 yards and like a touchdown and a pick, and then ran for like 120 yards. And to me, when you're playing against Central Arkansas, that doesn't exactly scream, top 5 pick to me, or even first round pick.
From the little I've seen, it looks like he's got a long release too, which is correctable. Rodgers used to hold the ball up like this.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, right now, I don't know. I just wouldn't. I'm just not on the Trey Lance train. I just don't think I think he could be good. I don't think that you spend a top 5, top 10 first round pick on him, because that means you're probably going to want him to play, and that means he's probably going to play before he's ready, and then you're going to have a bust on your hands. So that's.
Are you on the Trey Daubert train? Maybe not Trey Lance train.
I am on the Trey Daubert train. I'm a big fan of Trey Daubert.
Okay.
Yeah, great beard. Slightly worse mustache than me, but
Okay. That is Cayne Lander. Make sure to follow him on Twitter. I believe it's just Cayne Lander, right?
Yeah, it's just that Cayne Lander, CayneLander.
That is Logush 52, Scott. I think that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. All day AJ 27, touchdown Ohio State Dobbins. In the producer booth, myself, Trey Daubert.
Oh man, you're not an Ohio State fan.
No, his Twitter handle is all day AJ. I was like, I just gotta put the Dobbin stuff in there. It's just
that's all Trey. He's been saying that for a couple of months.
Okay.
Anyway, Alex, put the break in here, but I'm gonna keep going.
The following is brought to you in partnership by Symbol. Symbol is a new sports marketplace where you can trade shares of professional teams like stocks. You love sports. You interested in fantasy sports without the weekly annoyance of fantasy league upkeep? Then Symbol's the app for you. With Symbol, fantasy sports is going to a whole other level. How it works is simple. You buy Symbol shares for your favorite sim teams on the app. When your sim team wins, you get automatic cash deposits, and you don't lose any money when they lose. That's it. So if you follow trends across football, basketball, and baseball, and you think your team is a sleeper, simply invest in your favorite sim teams on Symbol and watch your virtual portfolio prove you right or wrong. And if you want to get in on the action right away, Vendetta Sports Media's got you covered. Go to symbol.app/Vendetta and use our exclusive promo code Vendetta, and you'll get a $10 bonus when making your first deposit. Symbol, taking fantasy sports to a whole other level.
Scott, give me your top maybe 5-ish quarterbacks, because we've kind of had this debate in the Slack. I can't quite understand how the San Francisco 49ers are about to give up 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick for Mac Jones.
I don't understand that either. Partially because, it's one thing to think, okay, we think Mac Jones is better than all these people. It's another to give up 3 first-round picks to be able to make that call. And that's just something I would not.
He might have been there at 12.
There's a chance he would have been there at 12. You'd have to fear someone like maybe the Patriots jumping you, but there's a good chance he would have been there at 12. I haven't watched a lot of quarterbacks, and I'm sorry, Cayne, as you can probably tell, Kyle Trask will not be on this list.
Yeah, it's okay. I've been wrong before too.
We all have. And so I haven't watched a ton of quarterbacks, but Lawrence would be the one. I like Fields more than Wilson. And there's the narrative that he can't go through his reads. One, that offense relies a lot on option routes. So if he has to look at a guy to figure out what the hell route he's running, that's not because he can't go through reads. That's because the offense is it's not really allowing him to do it. Great athlete, and he's fucking tough. You saw the hit he took in the college football playoff. I don't know if he got out of bed the next day after taking that hit. That was ridiculous.
Also a bullshit targeting call, I may add.
Yes, I agree with that. But you can't watch that, see him go for a play, come back, and do what he did. That guy loves football. He's a hard worker, great athlete. I would have him at 2. Wilson would probably be 3. I loved his pro day, and I love the arm strength he was able to showcase and the downfield accuracy. That really impressed me. The one thing you could say is he kind of got rocked against Coastal Carolina. That's a valid knock you could have. I just love the arm strength and the speed, how he throws the ball. And that's also one guy who just came out of nowhere like a Joe Burrow and just said, hey, I'm here, I'm on the scene. Let's go. And then 4 and 5, it's tough between Jones and Lance because Lance, I like Jones because you know what you're getting. Yes, he's not mobile, but you know what you're getting. He's very accurate. But with Lance,
hold on. Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit here. You say he's not mobile, but I mean, Mac Jones did run like a 4.68.
He's not.
I thought it was a 4.86.
He's not as mobile.
4.68.
No way it was a 4.6.
I thought it was a 4.86.
No. Well, the website I had up before clearly has a typo.
Also, pro day numbers have been ridiculous this year. So take all.
I do think he's more mobile than Trask. Like
he's more mobile than Trask. Yes.
He ran a 4.68 at his pro day.
That's not bad at all.
No.
He's not as mobile as everyone else in this class, but he can still move. He can still move around if you want to move the pocket. Plus, he has the dad bod, so I'm really rooting for him to succeed just because of that. I really want him to succeed because of that. And then with Trey Lance, you're banking on being able to develop a project. That's the one issue there. Because he's got tools, but if your coaching staff can't help him, you're kind of just going to be shit out of luck.
Yeah, that's almost why, like, maybe San Francisco would pull the trigger on a Lance, right? If you believe in the talent, you say, hey, we can start Garoppolo for this year, and I plug him with Shanahan, and I can coach him up. That's the kind of guy I hope that San Francisco would pull the trigger if they're not in on Fields.
Exactly, because you're in a spot where, hey, you don't have to start him. You don't have to start this rookie because you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a capable starter. It's just he can't stay on the field.
Kane, how different is your list from Scott's?
Not super different, actually. I'm completely on board with the Justin Fields at number 2 train.
I am too.
It's kind of like I wrote in my article. Like, I think there's always this thing that happens when there's, like, at any position, when there's sort of like an entrenched top 2 or top 3 that's been like that forever. Because, like,
want something
realistically for 2 years, it's been Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, 1, 2, right? So it's just like, to me, it's like, why overthink it? Like Justin Fields is, what is he, 6'4", 230? He ran 4.4. The guy chucked like 70 touchdowns at Ohio State in 2 seasons. Like, let's not overthink this here. The guy's got size, got the athleticism. He can play, and he can flat out play ball. Honestly, like I mean, yes, Zach Wilson did some impressive things this year, but again, while we're talking about quarterbacks, I'm gonna go back to my article a lot. The thing with BYU is that they had a talent deficit against every single team they played this year, including Coastal Carolina, if I'm being honest. So last year, their schedule was much more difficult. So when you have a quarterback that has never done well before, and you come in and you play against sort of like subpar teams and have a talent deficit against every one of those teams, I'm left asking myself, okay, how much of your success was actually because you're really good and you did a lot of improvement and did a lot of work in the offseason and just flat out got better? And how much of that is to do with the fact that your schedule was soft and your team was better than everybody? Like, to me,
I would put Fields 2 as well. I would put Fields 2 as well. And I keep going back to this, but this man literally showed up to the Elite 11 camp and was not only better than Trevor Lawrence, he was head and shoulders the best quarterback on the field.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't show up to these camps, outperform Trevor Lawrence, and be like, well, that guy sucks.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Trevor Lawrence, and not to mention, like, the other top 100 quarterbacks in the nation. Like, he showed through the Elite 11 that he's
got a little bit of an eye of the tiger to him too. Like, you can see he really has that something to him.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big fan of Zach Wilson as well. I know I think this might be the best quarterback class maybe ever, in my opinion, because normally I'm like way down on like at least 3 or 4 guys, but I love a lot of these guys. I think Zach Wilson has, and I don't want to necessarily compare him to him, I do think he's got a little Mahomes in him. Some of the throws he makes are sick.
Yeah. Oh man, you know the one I'm talking about, the one where he rolls left and it's the little post route.
I actually thought he looked good against Coastal Carolina. I don't know why people hate on him for that performance.
Oh no, I'm not. I don't think that was. I mean, watching that game, I don't think Coastal Carolina was a good football team too.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying I hate Zach Wilson. I'm not saying I'm down on him. I just don't see a reason why. It's like I said, let's not overthink this. Like, why are we putting him ahead of Justin Fields? right now.
I do like the fact that Zach Wilson started since he was a freshman. Like he walked right in there, clearly was the best guy at 18 and started for 4 or 3 years.
Yeah, but
that's what I love about
at
Zach Wilson
BYU
too.
though. At
Yeah,
BYU.
but a lot of these guys like a Trubisky, he can't beat out Marquise Wilson.
Yeah.
He starts 1 year like
Yeah.
Can't beat out Marquise Wilson.
And I mean, depending on the circumstances, that is definitely a knock on people. I don't think it's a knock on Mac Jones in his case, just because he plays at Alabama. But I mean, I definitely think like I don't think it's a knock on Justin Fields either, to be quite honest. Like he went to one of the best programs in the country and, you know, sat behind one of the best quarterbacks they've ever had at Georgia and then went to Ohio State and dominated. Like Mitch Trubisky, though, I don't know if there's anybody like that in this class that has only started one season. I guess Kyle Trask would be the closest, but even he started 2 seasons.
Yeah. Let's shift to running backs here because I know Scott's a big running back hater. I would take. Before I let you go, I would not take any of these guys in the first round. I would not. I don't think any of these guys are worthy of being first round picks. But I do think Najee Harris will probably get picked in the first round.
This is my thing with running backs. It's not that I don't like them. And it's not even that I don't think they're very talented and are, quote, first round talent. It's that the draft is more of an indication of how valuable a player is and how their value is perceived more than just how raw talented they are. That's why we're talking about all these quarterbacks potentially going 1, 2, 3 when Kyle Pitts is the best player in the draft. It's because league puts such an emphasis on value. And the sad reality for running backs is you can find an undrafted free agent like James Robinson to fill in. You can find someone in the mid rounds to fill in as opposed to spending a first round pick on someone else. And it's also like there was how Najee Harris stuffed, who was it, Todd McShay in a locker, like figuratively. He could, let's be honest, he would do that literally very easily as well. And it's like, I love his game, but the reason I wouldn't want Pittsburgh spending a first round pick on him is because what does it matter if you have Najee Harris, but you can't open a fucking hole for him? Like, what does it matter if your backfield's just a clusterfuck and there's people everywhere and he's not going to have space to even think? Like, it's not that I hate running backs. It's just that I feel you could do better with those picks and get better value.
Yeah.
Kane, what are your thoughts on Najee Harris? He was the number 2 recruit in the country when he came out. I think he's uber talented, and he can catch the ball like crazy too.
And I've been watching, you know, those stupid videos of at like Nike camps or whatever where he'd run over a DB and everybody'd be like, "Oh my God," freaking out. Like I've seen those videos since before he went to Alabama. I think it can be said about Najee Harris, and I think it can be said about Travis Etienne as well. Both these guys, like, they're absolute ballers.
I think Etienne stinks.
Really? I think there was games that he looked like the best player on that whole team.
I think he stinks.
I disagree. I think you're wrong. But Najee Harris, who's the topic here, I think that, like, there's nothing I dislike about him. But it's kind of like I have a hard time judging correctly running backs that come from Alabama. I have a hard time because I mean, like, Derrick Henry's great, but Derrick Henry is, you know, 6'4" and 260 pounds and runs 4.4. You know what I mean? Like Najee Harris, he just seems like an average Alabama running back, and I don't know how actually good he is. The only thing, like you said, is he can catch the ball like crazy, and I think that it's a little bit of both. Like I said, you watch him and he looks like a baller. He doesn't look like, you know, just a regular guy who's being handed the ball behind a dominant offensive line on a dominant team and you know, running behind them. I just think that it's kind of like Scott said. I'd have a hard time taking running backs in the first
like Najee
round.
Harris. I think if Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry had a baby together, I think it would look like Najee Harris.
That's actually a really good way to put it. I've never thought that, but yeah.
Shit, he's got a point.
Scott, give me a sleeper running back then. I know you don't like running backs in the first round or the second round or the third round or the fourth round.
There's a right answer to this. There's a right answer to this.
Just give me a sleeper running back that you like.
There's a right answer to this, Scott, and I hope you know what it is.
I'm not going the Canadian, unfortunately.
Why not, man? He's gross.
Oh, I
Because
think
one thing-
he's
because-
terrible.
One thing, because when I was watching the Oklahoma State and Texas game, I just didn't see anything like particularly special coming from Hubbard.
Hey, don't talk shit on my boy Chuba, okay?
I'm not talking shit. I'm
I
just
think he's
saying,
awful.
like while watching this film, he didn't pop off my screen. He didn't do anything that made me say shit. Like if you like one running back, which I saw was Michael Carter from North Carolina.
Love him.
I love him. He's twitchy. He's shifty. It was hard to find a situation where one guy brought him down. It was difficult to find a situation where the first two people brought him down. I love his ability to make tough catches in traffic. He caught a lot, like Sam Howell threw him a couple hospital balls against, I think, Miami, and he held on to those while getting popped by a linebacker. I really like him.
I'm a big Michael Carter guy too. I think your boy Chuba Hubbard, he's not good, Kane. Hop off that bandwagon.
I gotta represent, man.
I mean, like he's quick and he's got some nice speed, but there's nothing that I see that just says like I need this guy ahead of someone else. I just like Michael Carter a lot better.
I want to bring up one topic that we haven't touched on, kind of not an easy transition, but the Jalen Phillips stuff doesn't make any sense to me. I can't quite wrap my head around how you could pick a guy in the first round that retired from football. Sorry, can't do it. Scott?
There's just better options anyway.
I agree.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes on Jalen Phillips here.
You have notes?
Yeah. I don't know it's on everybody.
I think he might be the third best pass rusher on his own college team.
I like Quincy Roche a lot better.
I love Quincy Roche.
I like them a lot better than Jalen.
Quincy Roche gets after you. That guy has some nuts on him. He gets after you.
I just think
he's
like
got some really good
if
speed.
you're picking a pass rusher in this draft, it has to be Kwity Paye, right? Like it has to be. There, like you, I know that.
I like the Georgia guy a lot.
Oh,
he's not as big though. Ojulari.
Yeah, that guy. I haven't gotten a chance to really watch him yet.
He's not as big. He's probably going to be like a little outside linebacker, but I like him a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think.
Talk to me about Quincy Roche, Scott. I need to hear this.
One thing I really liked is that while I was watching the UNC game as well, he popped off your screen. There was one play. So one snap, Jalen Phillips gets double teamed. He's done. All right, he's just done. I think the next snap or a couple snaps after, Quincy Roche gets double teamed, kicks the tackle's ass, whoops him inside, kicks someone else's ass to beat him outside. And I love his hand movement. I love his hand usage as well.
He's nasty. He gets after you.
I love his
like with
technique.
Phillips, he's like, oh, he can bend a little bit. But like
Phillips has good speed. I like his.
He can bend. He's got some speed, but like
you won't tell me I'm wrong here. Jalen Phillips gives me mad Deion Jordan vibes.
Oh, that's perfect.
Mad Deion Jordan.
That's perfect.
Vibes.
Perfect.
Because
and I don't like. You can't take a guy that retired from football because of concussions in the first round. You can't
he's one
miss.
head injury away from having to retire again.
You can't miss in the first round.
Man,
and if you use a first round pick on
having
that,
to retire, man.
2 years, that's a waste of pick.
He's one concussion away from being like mush, from like him like CTE to the max. He already probably has CTE.
And it's not like he was out there picking up 18 and a half sacks or whatever.
No, it's not like he was constantly whooping offensive tackles.
Yeah. He had what? 6
like
sacks?
if he was doing that, then okay, you may have a point.
Yeah.
But if he's not absolutely kicking everybody's ass, if he's not head and shoulders above everyone else when healthy,
why are you risking it?
You can't justify.
Makes no sense to me.
You can't justify it.
I mean, I couldn't, and I don't understand. I don't even really like. I didn't know who Jalen Phillips was until like 3 weeks ago. Like I didn't
know until who he was.
You know what it reminds me of? TJ Hawkinson. I had no idea who that guy was until like 4 weeks until the draft. Like, TJ Hawkinson, he's not even the best tight end on his own college team. And he's not. No offense, better. And he still is. And the Lions picked him with the 8th pick in the draft. Like, I didn't know who this guy was 4 weeks ago.
I don't know. To be fair, they're both pretty good.
You take TJ Hawkinson, the 8th pick in the draft?
No.
I wouldn't take a tight end in the top 10 picks.
Unless you're Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts. Yeah. Unless your name is Rob Gronkowski or Kyle Pitts, I'm probably not taking you in the top 10. to be honest. Or I guess, or George Kittle at this point. Not even Travis Kelce, I don't think.
Scott, give me a couple guys that maybe you just hate. They just suck. You want no part of them.
Scott Logush.
Kane Lander. I don't know if it's necessarily that I hate it, but when I was watching some tape of Sam Cosmi, I didn't see much, specifically against Oklahoma State. Like, and I don't know if this is how they teach the run blocking, but I didn't see him get a lot of push. I saw him more just try to get in the way, finesse someone out of the way, rather than going up to them and just pushing them backwards.
That is, to be fair, Scott, that is a way that I mean, they teach.
I know, and that's why I'm saying I don't know. I don't want to hold it against him too much because I'm like, this could very well be just how they coach it. But even then, I didn't see a lot of power and push. Now, if that's how they coach it, it's still the fact that I didn't see it, and so I have questions about that.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, they do teach like positioning and stuff, but it's not like you still finish. Like if you have a guy and you can dog the guy, I still want you to dog the guy.
That's the thing. I didn't see much of that.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to just have that technique of trying to just wall them off.
Yeah.
But then you need to go into it. And then another offensive tackle that I have concerns about would be Christian Darrisaw. And this is because I watched two separate games. I watched him against Clemson and I watched him against Liberty. And he looked much worse against Liberty. It looked like I don't want to say he didn't care, but he just played worse. It looked like he was there like, I am bigger and stronger than you. I'm just going to go through the motions. And it didn't seem like he was that interested in playing up to his potential that game. And that's what concerns me. He easily gives up in pass rush. He easily gives up hands in the middle of his chest. And specifically against Liberty, he doesn't make an effort to try to chop him down. He just said, here's my chest, put your hand there. And he doesn't do anything to fight it.
Yeah.
Patrick Liney's got 2 goals tonight, Scott. I put him in my
I got the Leafs game. I got the Leafs game on right now.
Oh my God.
I got a first round bye.
We might be in business here, producer Alex. Patrick Liney's on the board. I had to put him in because the Blues game got postponed tonight. Freaking unbelievable.
Oh yeah, Kane, do you have a clue as to what the hell is going on, or do you need to explain this to you?
Never mind. Go ahead. Kane Lander, give me a couple guys you think just suck. Want no part of them. Wouldn't draft them.
Christian Barmore, I think.
What's that?
He's the D tackle from Alabama that people think are going to get drafted like between 10 and 20. And I just think it's ridiculous because he's not that good. And the only reason he's getting drafted that high is because he's from Alabama.
I haven't watched it maybe like him super closely, but that's one of those like, okay, Jaron Reed, Dalvin Tomlinson, like none of those guys really ever miss. Maybe they're not superstars, but it's hard to say like who's the Alabama 3 tech that just sucks.
It might be him.
A'Shawn Robinson's not that good.
Christian, so this guy's 6'5", 310. Actually, so that might be your 3 tech. He had 6 sacks this year. He only had 15 solo tackles, and I don't know. He's just average. He's just an average SEC D tackle, and I hate that. I don't hate maybe he's going to be fine in the NFL, but I don't think he's, there's mock drafts saying he's going to go as high as 14, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous because he is, I guess this is a pretty weak D tackle class in my opinion. There's not a lot of guys that I would draft for D tackles in the first round, but I mean, for teams that need D tackles, I just think it's a tough year for the boys in that case.
I think Travis Etienne sucks. We can talk about this a little bit. Why
do you think?
Here's a game that everyone should go back and watch. I want everyone to go back and watch Travis Etienne play Notre Dame the first time around when Lawrence wasn't out there, because it was clear and obvious that Notre Dame said, this Travis Etienne guy, he ain't beating us, and we're going to make sure he stinks today. And he averaged 1 yard a carry, went backwards constantly, fumbled the ball. I forget his name. I'm butchering that bad. Anyway, the linebacker, Jeremiah something. Yeah. He blew him up, made him fumble. I thought he was awful in that Notre Dame game. And the more I watched Etienne, I'm like, this guy's just greedy, man. He looks for the home run. He goes backwards too many times. I don't like his vision at all. And he's kind of smallish. And I think his hands are a little overrated too.
I'm never like Christian McCaffrey is really the only like running back that I think I would really like consider good. Like I think this whole like running backs catching the ball out of the backfield thing, I think it's always a little bit overblown because it's like Christian McCaffrey's one of the only running backs in the NFL that's lining up in the slot and like running actual routes. Like
I saw people compare Etienne to Chris Johnson. I wanted to throw up. It's just not close.
I don't know. I think that
Chris Johnson's like, he's on a different level in terms of speed, and they would line him up at receiver.
I think when you have a guy that had, 6,100 yards from scrimmage.
Why did he get worse? He was better as a junior.
Well, first of all, he only played in 12 games this year, and he got about 75% of the carries that he did for the past 2 years. He had more receiving yards this year than any other year in the past. It may have just been a function of, he was banged up. There was stuff going on. He didn't get as many carries. He didn't play as many games. I think he got worse statistically, but I don't think it was really that different.
My phone's blown up. This is outrageous. I think I have 60 Slack messages. I can't look at it. Scott, give me a guy that nobody's talking about, but you want to make sure you put your stamp on it. I am the Scott Logush hype train of this player that nobody wants to talk about. You want to take credit for him when they're really good.
Mine is Kyle Trask.
Sorry. We spent enough time on him.
I'm just kidding.
My big guy, the one guy that as soon as I started watching, I fell in love with, it was Telvin Jenkins. Because, like I said before, finish is great. Love his footwork. Love his hand usage. Whenever you're watching his tape, you can see him constantly hand fighting. And that's a great thing. And he doesn't get pushed back. Like, there are multiple snaps where, like, he's at the line of scrimmage or a yard behind the line of scrimmage, and everyone else is at least 2 to 3 yards deeper than him. And one thing that is just, like, a pet peeve I have, sacks don't always put them on the offensive line. Because Telvin Jenkins gave up a sack against Texas. That's because the quarterback had the bright idea. He was standing in the middle of the pocket. The pocket had about like a 5-yard radius. And he decides to roll out unnecessarily straight into a defender. That pisses me off so much when I see that. Because you look at the statute, this guy, offensive lineman, gave up a sack. Well, no, he didn't. The quarterback just ran into it. And in that situation, you can't possibly be expected to do anything about that when your quarterback.
Pete Carroll needs to hire Scott when he's arguing against Russell Wilson.
I feel like that's one of the greater injustices. That gets assigned to O linemen.
It is.
Oh, you allowed 2 sacks this game. It's like, okay, well, when my quarterback
watch the sacks
towards the end, what do you want me to do?
Like my quarterback walks straight into the guy. The fuck am I supposed to do, man?
I think I remember.
What am I supposed to do?
Snap. I think I remember the exact snap you're talking about, and I remember going,
I think you do.
O lineman's gonna get in trouble for that.
Exactly. I think you do. You got to know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that just pisses me off to no end.
Yeah.
Like, that is my biggest pet peeve in football.
I've been banging the table for Kyle Pitts for like 2 years, but now it's like to the point where everyone has joined in, so I can't even do that one anymore. My guy is Eric Stokes, the cornerback at Georgia.
Unreal. So fast.
Love Eric Stokes. He's a burner. He can run for days. And not only that, he played running back in high school. He's super physical. And people are like, oh, he's a little too handsy. I don't care. He beats people up. That Sugar Bowl game against Denzel Mims put him in his back pocket. He's got great ball skills. I think he's going to be awesome.
I also like the thing about his 40 time, because looking at the video, that looked like a, laser start, laser finish.
He can run.
Which, like, I don't get why the combine doesn't do that. The combine has a laser finish, but it's like a hand start. So there's that room for human error, and that annoys the crap out of me. Because you're the NFL combine. You should be able to have a laser start and laser finish. If you want this to be like the official times, you should be able to do that. And while we're on the topic of 40 times, Justin Fields someone on Twitter broke it down frame by frame. It was actually a 4-4 flat.
I believe that
Which-
Fields is a good athlete.
I think people always make the mistake of assuming that just because a 40 time is unofficial, that their real 40 time will be slower. People don't realize that often 40 time, like hand time on 40 is often
You jump the gun.
like your
and
real
it's actually,
your real 40 would actually be faster than that. And I think that's something that not a lot of people think about.
The,
Like
the
anytime
40 that I saw that I was like, that doesn't seem right is the Jamar Chase one. I love Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is awesome, but he's not a 4-3 guy. I'm sorry.
and he never was. He never was really. Like he's
awesome. I love him, but there's no way in hell that guy ran a 4-3 something.
What the one thing the comparison I saw that was actually pretty accurate, I thought, is Jamar Chase is a faster version of Anquan Bolden, which I thought was a pretty cool comparison.
I'm pretty sure I said that in my article. You may have read mine.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure that's what I said. I could be wrong.
Oh, maybe you did. Maybe Vendetta's on my mind all the time.
I'll have to go back and double check.
Maybe I'm assimilated completely into this team now.
slowly creeping into your brain and taking over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Scott lives in my head rent free. Scott and that bowl cut and the receding hairline gets me going.
Why do you think most time when I play football I'm wearing a skull cap? So when I take my helmet off,
my hair is
you don't see
absolutely
the
running
bald-
out of time.
You don't see like the bit of a bald spot just right here.
Yeah.
Why do you think I do that, Kane?
I don't know. My guy, I guess, would probably be Rondell Moore. I've been a big
Trey loves him.
I've been a big Rondell Moore guy forever. You can see it in my articles that I wrote about Purdue and their preseason predictions and stuff. I think that people forget how absolutely unreal he was in his freshman season. And I mean, he's been plagued with like injuries and other issues and stuff for the past couple of years. But man, when he plays healthy, like I think if he was completely healthy all this year, I think he would have been not even the best receiver. I think he could have been the best player in the Big.
He beat Ohio State by himself.
Yeah.
They got Purdue.
Man, he was disgusting. And he's the kind of guy, there's certain guys that they step on the field and it's like, that's the team's best player.
I think he's a bowling ball of hell.
Yeah, that's the best player on this team. And I think Rondell Moore's one of those guys. And I mean, yeah, he did play at Purdue, but the flip side of that is in his freshman year, he had 1,200 receiving yards and no starting quarterback for more than like 4 games at a time. So
I think his guy was David Blau. Remember watching him on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, but didn't they have like a quarterback by committee thing going? Where my point is, I think Rondell Moore is going to be an absolute stud.
I think he can be better Percy Harvin.
Yeah, basically like a gadget guy kind of deal.
Yeah,
I think he could be what Tavon Austin should have been.
Tavon Austin stinks.
Yeah, but he didn't look like he was going to stink.
Yeah.
But the same, in my opinion, the same kind of caliber athlete when he's healthy as Tavon Austin.
Before we wrap up here, I guess this will be my last question, unless you guys have any other topics. But Scott, give me your hottest draft take. I'm gonna let producer Alex give his hottest take too. I know he's not a big draft guy. I've let him sit in the corner, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Giants guy, so I want to see the Giants take Waddle, and they don't really need it. They have their wide receivers from Galladay and John Ross, but I didn't make any sense to me. All these guys are saying right before, a couple weeks ago as we get into the draft, and it's like, oh, like if Devonta's going to be there or if Waddle's going to be there, take him. And then literally right when Galladay gets the signing, then it's like, okay, all those receivers off the board. And it's like, oh, we're going to get an edge, or maybe we'll get Micah Parsons or something like that. But that whole wide receiver pick off the board, because they technically now they don't really need it. But if Waddle is there, that's the pick. That's the same thing with if Kyle Pitts is there for anybody. If Kyle Pitts is there, he's the right pick because that's the best available player. So that's why I'm like, in my shoes, I don't give a shit that John Ross in there is and that Sterling Shepard is there. And you already have Darius Slayton, and now you already got Kyle Rudolph, and you still have Evan Ingram. You have all these receivers. I don't give a shit. If Jalen Waddle is there, take him. Check mark.
We can spend a couple minutes on the Waddle
Never have too
and
many weapons.
Devontae Smith guy, because to me, I think Jalen Waddle, the young kids say this, the kids in Scott's grades, he's built different, man.
Yes, that happens a lot, and that's fucking stupid.
But with Waddle, I really think he is. Like, when I watch him, there's guys that are fast. And then when I watch Waddle, I'm like, he looks like an alien out there. People should not move like that.
I don't know. It's tough when receivers
I feel almost disrespectful comparing him to Tyreek Hill, but I don't think anybody else moves like Waddle. He's an alien.
Waddle could be the best athlete I've ever seen in college football, to be honest.
Every time he touches the ball, you're like, oh, he got tackled. How did that happen? Yeah. Scott, you have a hot take for me? Kane, you got a hot take for me?
Mine is going to be that Michael Carter is head and shoulders above Javonte Williams.
Okay, I like that.
As a running back.
I like both of them, but I love Carter.
I would go Carter behind Najee Harris, running back 2 for me. Just because I love his burst. Because he's so shifty too. There are situations where the hole is tiny. He hits it, and he's going for a 40-yard touchdown run. He did something like that against Miami, and I'm like, how? How does this make any sense? There's a pile there. He just emerges.
That Miami game was ridiculous.
That was bonkers.
They both went off against Miami.
They did, and that was bonkers. I was also, one of the games where he made a ridiculous catch in traffic just because he got drilled by a linebacker. And I just love his burst. I love his agility. And he breaks tackles in a way where it's like he has some power, not as much as Williams, but he more than makes up for it in his ability to just make guys miss. And I just love him for that.
Kane, hot take?
Rashawn Slater gets drafted 5 by the Bengals.
Totally agree. I think the Bengals are locked in.
I think instead of Penei Sewell.
I agree. I think the Bengals are going to take him. They're in Big Ten country, Cincinnati. They want the Northwestern kid. I think that's locked and loaded. Done.
Oh, and they probably realize what your boy here has been saying, which is that Rashawn Slater is better than Penei Sewell.
We'll see.
I will die on that.
We'll see.
Have you been sending them your scouting reports?
I've actually done a one-on-one against both of them, and Penei Sewell's pretty soft. So
soft?
I'm just kidding.
You think he's soft?
I haven't done. Yes, okay. I haven't done a one-on-one against either of those guys, but yes, now that we're talking about it, I do think Penei Sewell's pretty soft.
I just love how he moves in space.
He's like 332, isn't he?
Yeah,
but man, he doesn't.
I love how he moves in space, though.
He doesn't dong anybody.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if I necessarily have a hot take. I do so many articles that everything just mixes.
That everything's just fucking out there. So go read all of Trey's shit and figure out for yourself which one's his hot take.
I did 6 draft profiles that are scheduled for tomorrow. Did like 7 today. Just gonzo. I barely have enough time to think. That is Kane Lander on Twitter. Scott Logush, Logush52. All day AJ for producer Alex in the booth. Myself, Trey Dalbert. That's going to do it for this episode of That's and Cheese. Make sure to follow those guys and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, check out Symbol. Buy something on there. Pretty much if you use the code Vendetta, you get your first team basically for free. So I don't know why you wouldn't sign up. Make sure to do that. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We will see you next time.